You do it every day without thinking. It feels harmless, even loving in a strange way. Your dog looks at you. You respond instinctively, and in that moment, it feels like connection. But what if I told you that this one common habit is slowly confusing your dog, weakening your bond, and in some cases, quietly stressing them out? Most dog owners never notice it, because on the surface, nothing looks wrong. Your dog still eats, still wags its tail, still follows you around. Everything seems fine. But beneath that calm surface, something is shifting. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. But don't worry, we'll come back to that. Because the truth is, this habit doesn't come from neglect. It comes from love. The kind of love that says, I want my dog to feel happy all the time. And that's exactly where the problem begins. Most people believe that being a good dog owner means constantly responding to their dog's needs. Every bark, every whine, every look. They think attention equals affection. That immediate reaction equals trust. But dogs don't think like humans. They don't measure love by how often you respond. They measure it by something much deeper. Consistency, clarity, emotional stability. And when those things are missing, even in small ways, it creates something subtle but powerful. Uncertainty. Let me show you what that looks like. Imagine you're sitting on the couch. Your dog walks up, nudges your hand with its nose. Without thinking, you pet them. A few minutes later, they do it again. You pet them again. It feels normal, even sweet. But here's what most people miss. From your dog's perspective, something very different is happening. They're learning that they control the interaction, that they can initiate attention whenever they want, and you will always respond. At first, that sounds harmless. But over time, it shifts the entire dynamic of your relationship. Because dogs don't just seek affection. They seek structure. And when that structure disappears, their mind starts filling in the gaps. That's when behaviors start to change. Maybe your dog becomes more demanding, nudging you more often, pawing at you when you stop. Maybe they start whining or staring intensely when they want something. And if you ignore them, even briefly, they seem confused, almost anxious. But here's the part that's hard to accept. They're not becoming more affectionate. They're becoming dependent. And dependence in a dog doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like pressure. Now, let's take it a step deeper. Picture this. You're working, maybe on your phone, maybe on your laptop. Your dog lets out a small whine. You glance over and immediately respond. Hey, what's wrong? You say softly. Maybe you pet them. Maybe you talk to them. It feels like you're being attentive. But your dog just learned something very important. Your attention is triggered by their discomfort. So what happens next? They repeat it again and again and again. Not because they're manipulating you, but because that's what worked. This is how emotional habits form in dogs. Quietly, repeatedly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Over time, your dog may start displaying more of the very behaviors you're trying to soothe. More whining, more restlessness, more neediness, and you respond more. It becomes a loop that feels like care but is actually reinforcing instability. But we're not done yet, because there's another layer most people completely overlook. Let's talk about inconsistency. One day, your dog jumps on you. You laugh. Maybe it's been a long day, and you're happy to see them. You pet them, maybe even encourage it. The next day, you're tired. They jump again. This time, you push them away. Maybe even say no. Now, from your perspective, that makes perfect sense. But from your dog's perspective, the rules just changed. And not in a clear way. In a confusing way. Dogs don't understand moods the way humans do. They understand patterns. And when those patterns become unpredictable, it creates hesitation. You might notice it in small ways. Your dog pauses before approaching you. Their body language becomes slightly more cautious. Their tail wag isn't as relaxed, it's more questioning. They're trying to figure out which version of you they're going to get. And that uncertainty? It chips away at trust. Not in a dramatic, obvious way, but slowly, quietly. Now here's something even more subtle. Something that almost no one talks about. Eye contact. There are moments when your dog looks at you, and you instantly respond. You talk to them. You engage. It feels like connection. And sometimes it is. But here's what most people don't realize. Constantly responding to your dog's gaze can actually create a form of hypervigilance. Your dog starts watching you more, waiting for cues. Not out of curiosity, but out of dependency.
Their attention becomes fixed on you. Not relaxed. Not balanced. But alert. Almost like they're on standby. And over time, that kind of mental state is exhausting. Dogs need moments of neutrality. Moments where nothing is expected. Moments where they can simply exist, without constantly checking in. But if every look gets a reaction, those moments disappear. And without them, your dog never truly relaxes. Now let's go back to something we mentioned earlier. That quiet shift beneath the surface. This is where it all connects. Because the habit we've been talking about isn't just one thing. It's a pattern. A pattern of constant reaction. Constant availability. Constant emotional feedback. And while it feels like love, to your dog, it can feel like instability. Because true stability isn't about always being there in every second. It's about being predictable. Calm. Grounded. Dogs are incredibly sensitive to emotional energy. They don't just listen to what you do. They feel how you exist. Your posture. Your tone. Your timing. And when those things are always shifting based on their behavior, they lose their anchor. But here's what's important. This isn't about ignoring your dog. It's not about becoming distant or cold. It's about intentional interaction. Instead of reacting every time your dog seeks attention, you begin to create moments where you initiate it. On your terms. In a calm, predictable way. This changes everything. Because now, your dog isn't guessing. They're understanding. They begin to feel a rhythm. A sense of structure. And within that structure, they relax. Their behaviors soften. Their neediness decreases. Not because you're giving them less love, but because you're giving them clearer love. The kind of love they actually understand. And here's the part that surprises most people. When you stop constantly reacting, your dog doesn't feel neglected. They feel safe. Because for the first time, the world makes sense. They don't have to test you. They don't have to seek reassurance every few minutes. They can just be. And in that space, something beautiful happens. Your bond deepens. Not through constant interaction, but through meaningful connection. Moments that are intentional. Calm. Real. So the next time your dog nudges you, or stares at you, or whines softly, pause. Not to ignore them, but to understand the moment. Ask yourself, am I reacting or am I guiding? Because that small difference changes everything. And now, think back to the beginning. That habit you never questioned. That automatic response that felt like love. Now you see it differently. Not as something bad, but as something misunderstood. And once you understand it, you start to show up differently. More aware. More grounded. More aligned with what your dog truly needs. And that's when the real connection begins. Not louder. Not more frequent. But deeper. And for the first time, your dog doesn't just follow you. They trust you. And there's something even deeper happening underneath all of this that most people never consider. When your dog starts feeling that predictable structure from you, something inside their nervous system begins to settle. Their breathing becomes slower around you. Their scanning behavior reduces. Even their sleep becomes more stable. Because in a dog's world, emotional safety isn't built through constant interaction, it's built through certainty. They don't need you to respond to every signal they send. They need to know that your presence doesn't change randomly. That you are still you, even when they test, even when they wait, even when they do nothing at all. And this is where many owners accidentally misunderstand their dog's silence. When a dog stops asking for attention constantly, people often think something is wrong. They think the dog is sad, or disconnected, or losing interest. But in many cases, it's the opposite. That silence can actually be a sign of internal balance returning. A sign that the dog is no longer in a constant state of emotional checking. They're no longer asking, "Will you respond this time?" Because they already understand the pattern. And once that understanding is established, something powerful emerges. Your dog starts choosing calm over chaos. They begin to lie near you without needing anything. They watch you without expectation. They exist beside you, not through you. And that shift is one of the most overlooked transformations in dog psychology. Because it's quiet. Almost invisible. But incredibly meaningful. So when you look at your dog now, don't just think about how often you interact. Think about what your interaction is teaching. Is it teaching urgency or calmness? Is it teaching dependency or trust? Because at the end of the day, your dog isn't trying to control you. They're trying to understand you. And the clearer you become, the more peaceful they become.